What's up, guys? Toad back again. I feel like I was just here because I just did my college football week 3 video last night. Those games are beginning in 3 hours or so. I have one play in the noon slate Eastern time, and the other ones are later than that. One is 3:30 in the afternoon, the others are night games. Go check out that video. I got 4 plays in there. They're all ugly underdogs. I posted the video on my Twitter, etc. I mean, you're watching my YouTube channel. You can go find the video. It's right there, week 3. I'll put it on the college football playlist as well. But, the short of it is I'm just playing a bunch of underdogs against teams that I think are in bad situational spots. So I think the plays are Central Michigan plus 21, UAB plus 23.5, Rice plus 4.5, and Wyoming plus 10. I have not looked this morning to see how the market has, shifted or anything like that to see if those numbers are still available. I think probably for the most part they are. But we're talking about baseball right here, man, because we do have a baseball card. I'm not going to go into this in that much detail. I only have one play on this card, and this is the time of year, man, where you got to assess not only the matchup but the motivation. And I think I'm going almost kind of against the motivational aspect of this one game that I'm on, but the market really looks like it's in agreement with me. I like the matchup on it. I'll talk about that in a second. I will point out a couple of things. Of course, this Miami-Washington game kind of caught my eye initially because it's Valente Bayozo, who is a guy that I've played on multiple times because he is a rookie. This is the battle of lefties here. He's up against Patrick Corbin, who I bash all the time because he's not a good pitcher. He had a stretch where he was pitching better, but now he seems to have become the Corbin that we know, and he's not been pitching as well recently. So I was like, I'm going to lean to Miami in this one. Washington's public because Miami's just so bad. Both of these teams are out of it, so the motivational aspect of it is not really in favor of one team or the other. But then I looked, and Bayozo has already faced Washington, so him being unfamiliar to the opposing hitter, that type of advantage is not there in this game, and he just faced them 2 starts ago. So I think that could be a little bit of an extra edge for Washington's hitters in this one. So I could actually potentially even see playing an over in this one rather than a side. I'm not going to do it, though. Then we have the starting pitching duel of the day right here. This looks like a really good pitching matchup. Dodgers and Atlanta, man. I almost said Falcons. Wrong sport. Dodgers, Braves, Jack Flaherty against Chris Sale. They both have good numbers. They both have decent numbers against these opponents as well, although maybe not as dominant as you'd expect out of these 2 very, very good pitchers. But I would lean towards an under in this one because the public tends to like to play overs in Dodgers Braves because they both can hit, but they also both know. The public also knows that both of these starting pitchers are really good. So I don't know. The books I think have done a good job with this one, throwing it at 7.5 because it's kind of the balance between both offenses being good and both starting pitchers being very good. Tough to gauge on that one. The public 67% on the over, but 79% of the cash on the over. Not going to get involved. No thanks on that one, but it looks like it could be a good pitching matchup. Baltimore-Detroit is kind of interesting because Baltimore, both of these teams are still fighting. This is a big game on the board today between Baltimore, who they're leading the wild card race right now, so I don't really think they have to worry about at least getting a wild card, but they're still fighting potentially to win the division in the AL East as well. And this looks like it's probably going to be a starting pitching mismatch because it's Corbin Burns, Baltimore's ace, and Detroit actually has almost no history against him. So somehow Burns, who's been in Major League Baseball for a long time, but it was mostly in the National League. So these Detroit hitters have basically never seen him before. So you have Burns, who's a veteran ace pitcher, and Detroit's never seen him before. So I think he has an extra edge here, really. So I lean to the Baltimore side, even though Detroit is the team that's fighting more to try to get this wild card, but it also means that Detroit hasn't been good enough throughout the course of the season to be in a better position than they are. Could be pressure mounting on them, but I think it's going to be a starting pitching mismatch because Detroit hasn't even determined who their starter is. And if you go back 5 games to figure out who would be next up in the rotation, I think they went with a bullpen game in that game, so it's very unclear who Detroit's starter is going to be. I don't even know if it matters. I think Baltimore is probably the correct side in this one. I don't know if you play first 5 innings, if you can get that price down on Baltimore, or if you basically just have to lay the 1.5 run line on Baltimore, but I do lean to the Baltimore side. Then you got the 2 old-timers both pitching today. Houston, Justin Verlander is pitching. He's a big road favorite against Tyler Anderson. Verlander, of course, has good historical stats against Anaheim. He has good historical stats against most lineups, but Verlander's an old guy now, man, and his stats this season are not great. So I think that you're still paying a built-in price because it's Verlander, and I don't really know how much value you're really getting on Verlander the way that he's been pitching at 41 years old or whatever, although he pitched well earlier in the season, so I don't know. I mean, there's obviously always a chance that Verlander is going to give you a gem because he is still future Hall of Famer Justin Verlander. So I don't know. And then Tyler Anderson on the other side has pretty bad stats against Houston historically. They hit over 300 against him. So I would not want to do anything with Anderson either. You could potentially play an over here because maybe just because Verlander's pitching, the total is a little bit lower than it should be. But Anaheim also doesn't really have the offensive weapons to fully take advantage of facing a pitcher that might be up there in age and not as good as he once was. So this is a tough one to read for me. The public is on Houston because it is Verlander, but more of the cash than the tickets on Houston. That's tough to say. And then Texas is bringing back Max Scherzer, the other old-timer. He's coming back off the DL. He was pitching decently for the most part when he did pitch this year, although he's certainly not what he once was, obviously. He's somewhere around 40 years old, too, I think, upper 30s. He's basically my age. We're old. Seattle's actually getting the favorite price here, up from minus 130 to minus 135. This could be an interesting pitching matchup, too, because you see the total has dropped from 7 heavily juiced to the under down to 6.5 juiced to the over. So the odds makers are throwing up a very low total on this, thinking this is going to be a very low-scoring game with Logan Gilbert pitching for Seattle. He is, no doubt, he's a good pitcher. I mean, basically everyone in Seattle's rotation is a good pitcher. They have the best starting rotation in baseball. They can't hit, and that's why Scherzer might also be in for a good outing in this one as well. This is a pitching park, and you got a good Seattle pitcher up against a veteran, a Hall of Fame pitcher, basically, who's up against a weak Seattle lineup. I basically only look to play unders in games in Seattle because it's a pitching park. You basically get a really good starting pitcher from Seattle in every single game and a not very good offense out of Seattle in every single game. Seattle's got 58% of tickets with 63% of the cash on the other side on Texas. So it looks like some money coming in, expecting Scherzer to be decent. We will see what happens there. And then I did eye this Cincinnati-Minnesota game. This is a situation where, and I guess Kansas City, Pittsburgh too, Minnesota and Kansas City are both fighting to get into the playoffs, whereas these National League teams, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, they're out of it. So the motivation has to be on the American League team in both of those games. However, the American League team is public in both games because everybody knows that the American League team is the better team, has the better record, etc. But I don't think you're really getting value on the American League team in this case just because everybody knows that they need to win this game. And then, the pressure could be mounting basically. But Kansas City has Michael Wacha up against Mitch Keller. Wacha, I think, does have the better numbers on the season. Well, he definitely has the better numbers on the season. He has decent numbers this season, really. And I think he does have better numbers against Pittsburgh than Keller does against Kansas City, too. But this is looking like Kansas City very public. 86% of the tickets, only 85% of the cash. Pittsburgh's lined at minus 105 right now. So basically, Kansas City probably also at kind of a minus 105 range. So odds makers kind of just splitting the difference there. I would not want to play on a very public Kansas City side. I considered playing Minnesota down from minus 150 to minus 144 against Cincinnati, but they're public as well. 75% of the tickets and the cash on them right now, and the line moving against them looks like a little bit of reverse line movement there. Cincinnati is Nick Martinez pitching, and he's been decent this season. He's had some pretty good starts there, and I think Minnesota does not have that much of a track record against them. And then on the other side, Simeon Woods Richardson, he's a guy I've been talking about. He's pitching his first full season for Minnesota, and he's putting together a good season. And Cincinnati essentially has never seen him before, so he should have a built-in edge there because he's unknown to Cincinnati. But then I looked at Woods Richardson, what he's done recently. He's had a drop-off recently, man. He doesn't throw that hard, so I don't know if it's just that despite not throwing that hard, just that how taxing it is to throw a full season in Major League Baseball as a starter is just catching up with him because he has not gone deep into his most recent outings. He hasn't been as good in his most recent outings. He's fallen off. He's not in good recent form. And Nick Martinez is coming off a really nice start, I think, against the Braves, which he could be in a bit of a letdown spot, which is what I mentioned with Gomber last night. And Gomber didn't do particularly well, but the Cubs pitching also really let me down yesterday. So I don't know. Martinez is the pitcher that's in the better recent form out of the two, though, even though I like the advantage that Woods Richardson has in not having been seen before by Cincinnati. But I don't know, man. Minnesota, again, like I said, they should have the motivational edge because they need to win the game, but the need to win also means the pressure is mounting. And that's a good segue into the one game I'm actually playing, which I'm playing on the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm going to take this full game, and I'm going to play, I don't know what you can get on this, plus 120 something, probably just fire right on that money line, man. And again, when you fire on an underdog money line like this in Major League Baseball, you don't really need, it's plus 125 here. I think you can get a little bit better than that out there at some books, plus 126, plus 128, something like that. When you fire on an underdog like that, like I say, you don't need them to win. You're not saying that you necessarily think they're going to win the game. You're saying you think they have a better chance to win the game than what the odds are giving you. So that's what I do think with this situation here with Milwaukee. I think the matchup is advantageous for Milwaukee. I do think a lot of it has to do with the starting pitching matchup, though. I think full game is still fine because Milwaukee has the better of the two bullpens. So both teams played yesterday. It was a low-scoring game. I think Milwaukee actually won the game 1-0 or 2-1 or something like that. Both teams used about the same amount of their bullpen. They both used a bunch of their best relievers. So I think that kind of negates everything as far as the bullpens are concerned, but Milwaukee has the better bullpen than Arizona does, I think. I think Milwaukee actually is like a top 5 bullpen ERA-wise throughout the course of the season. They're kind of flying under the radar as far as that's concerned, whereas Arizona's closer to the bottom of the pack in bullpen ERA. So I think there is a bullpen discrepancy in favor of Milwaukee, even though the bullpen rest advantage, I think, doesn't exist one way or the other here. Then you look at the starting pitching matchup, which I think is in favor of Milwaukee here. And I think that if you want to play first 5 innings on this one, I don't blame you on that either. You can take Milwaukee at a very similar underdog price on the money line in the first 5 innings, or you can take them at plus half a run in the first 5 innings, I think, if you want to. Although you might have to pay a little bit for that. You're probably paying a bit of a line for that. It's probably close to this minus 180, actually, if you wanted to do that. I don't know. I haven't looked because I'm just firing full game on the money line just because I think the bullpen advantage actually exists on the side of Milwaukee slightly. Looking at these starting pitchers, man, I mean, this is where most of this comes in. Well, I should say that, so yeah, you might think that Arizona should have the motivational edge because they're fighting to get into the playoffs. The Brewers, they're going to be in, man. I mean, there's basically no way they can be caught in the NL Central. They're going to win their division. They're going to be in the playoffs. Arizona actually has a slightly worse record, and they are fighting to get a wild card spot, man. That wild card race is jammed in the NL right now because the Mets are up in there right now. Arizona is in second place in the wild card right now, so they are ahead by a few games over the Mets and the Braves, I believe. So they're sitting okay right now. But I think the pressure might be mounting a little bit, and this matchup doesn't look good. The market looks like it's all over Milwaukee. Arizona up from minus 130 to minus 137, but they're public with 79% of the tickets. Public is overlooking Milwaukee, even though Milwaukee has, I think, the better starting pitcher here, and they have the better overall record this season. Kind of strange to see that the public is that heavily on Arizona. It just flipped to 80%. But you see 86% of the cash on the other side right now on Milwaukee. And obviously, I'm saying I agree with it. The market looks like it's showing a discrepancy there. Hopefully that continues to be the case because I like to see that market agreement with me. Tobias Myers is pitching for Milwaukee. He's a rookie, and he's having a good season. 2.93 ERA, 1.16 whip. And yeah, it's true. It's not going to be easy to go to Arizona and have to face their lineup. I think Arizona has a better offense than Milwaukee does, but Milwaukee doesn't have a bad offense either. So I think that's a bit of a wash as well. Myers, yeah, I mean, it is going to be a tough place to pitch. I don't think he has pitched there before, but that advantage goes both ways because Arizona, aside from Josh Bell, who's 0 for 3 off him with 2 strikeouts, nobody on this Arizona lineup, has ever faced Myers before. So you have this rookie pitcher with good stuff, good stats, and this Arizona lineup has never faced him before. So that's going to be an edge to Tobias Myers, man. As I always say with these young, good pitchers, when these hitters haven't seen them before, it takes a little bit of an adjustment period to figure them out and know what they're going to throw at you. So I think Myers has a little bit of an edge there. And he's been good all season. 112 to 33 strikeout walk ratio, only 106 hits allowed and 120 innings pitched. All that is good. I mean, he hit this stretch where he wasn't pitching deep into these games in May. A lot of them were on the road, but then he started going a lot deeper into games in June. And look at that June, a 1.44 ERA in, July, I guess. No, that was June. 1.44, yeah. For some reason, ESPN puts the month below the table for whatever reason, in the footer. Great UI, ESPN. A 2.7 ERA, and the strikeout walk ratios were all really good, too. In July and then in August, still did not, lose steam, really. Going a little bit less deep into some of these games, a 21 to 5 strikeout walk ratio, 2.67 ERA that month, and he's continued into September, 2.31 ERA. Struggled a little bit in Cincinnati, which is a tough hitter's park as well, kind of similar to Arizona. I'm not going to take too much away from that, read into that too much. He walked 4 guys in that game, which is pretty unlike him, and then he bounced back with a dominant performance over the Colorado here. And he is still throwing a lot of pitches, which even though that might tire you out, it does also mean that Milwaukee's letting him pitch, man. It means they have faith in Myers as a starting pitcher, so I like all that. And that starting against Colorado was great with an 11 to 1 strikeout walk ratio, only 1 earned run allowed on a solo homer, 4 hits allowed in 6 innings pitched. Wasn't at Colorado, it was at home. Colorado's offense is not very good, but still, he's continuing to pitch pretty consistently well. 2.31 ERA in these 2 starts in September. 18 to 5 strikeout walk ratio. He's just continuing to do it. And looking over the course of the year, he hasn't allowed more than, 5 earned runs in any start, which was oddly against the worst team that he faced, the White Sox. But other than that, he's allowed 4 or fewer in every game, and that was at Colorado in high elevation. So you take out that weird outlier against the White Sox, take out the game against the Yankees, which was his second start ever, and a good hitting Yankees lineup. And that wasn't even that bad a start for him, really. And the game at Colorado, and he's allowed 3 or fewer earned runs in all the rest of his starts. And since that Colorado game, he's allowed 2 or fewer in all but one start against the Giants. And then this one, there was 1 unearned run in the Cincinnati game, 2 earned runs. He's been pitching well, man, and Arizona has not seen him before, so I like the Tobias Myers side of this. And the other side of it, definitely not as good on the Brandon Pfaadt side. I don't know why the public is on this guy. I mean, they remember him from last year, I guess. He's a young dude, too. He started putting together some pretty good seasons. He made, he was on the team when they made that World Series run last year. But look at his stats this year, man. They're getting worse and worse. 4.42 ERA is not great. 1.22 WHIP is okay. He's got 160 strikeouts and 36 walks, so that's not a bad ratio, but I think he might be wearing down, man. I don't know, because he throws hard. That's 165 innings pitched. He's allowed 165 hits, too, so he's allowing too many hits. He's been a bit too hittable, 1 per inning on top of the walks that he's allowed. Not that great. I mean, the whip's still not horrible, but still, I think the number of strikeouts that he's throwing is catching up to him, man. You see him kind of gradually getting a little bit worse. He had another good month in July, though, but then in August, boy, even though he had a 30 to 5 strikeout walk ratio, which is good, he allowed 36 hits. He became way more hittable for some reason. Had a 6.04 ERA there. And then in September, strikeout walk ratio still good, 15 to 4, but also struggling, not going deep into these games. Granted, it was against the Dodgers and Houston, 2 teams that can hit, but still, he didn't perform well in those games. 6.1 ERA across those 2 starts. He's been struggling recently, allowing, aside from that Dodgers game where he only went 5 2/3 innings, allowed 8 hits, and he did allow 3 earned runs in that one. He's allowed 4 or more in every other one of his last 5 starts besides that one. 4 earned runs or more. That's not that great, man. So he's in the worst recent form between him and Tobias Myers, so that's not great. And then looking at him against Milwaukee, we do have a little bit of history. It is a small sample size, 13 at-bats, 5.0 strikeout walk ratio is pretty good for him, but Milwaukee does have a 308 batting average against him. 692 OPS isn't that high with no extra base hits there and no walks, but a decent batting average against him. And he's just the pitcher that's in the worst recent form, man. So that's the one play today. I forgot to make the banner for it, but you want me to do it real quick? Maybe I can. I'll delete my college football ones for the college football video. Milwaukee, I think it was plus 126. I don't even remember what I was on, but here you go for baseball. There it is, Milwaukee plus 126. That's going to do it for me, man. That's my one play. Go check out my college football video for the rest of the plays I have today. Have a good one. Let's have a good Saturday. Peace out, man.